how people with psychiatric conditions end up in nursing homes.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance. On the road and at home, customers can simplify their insurance needs and protect what's important by bundling home and auto with Progressive Insurance. Learn more about Progressive and bundling at progressive.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. First, international economic sanctions on Russia and the meeting in Alaska later today between Presidents Trump and Putin. In Anchorage, Steve Rosenberg, Russia editor with our newsroom partners, the BBC, says the state of the Russian economy may be part of the timing here.
The budget deficit is increasing. Oil and gas revenues are decreasing. Many branches of industry are approaching recession. The Russian newspapers write about this all the time, even in a very controlled media landscape. It's very difficult to hide that. So I wonder whether this is the moment that Vladimir Putin has decided, well, the economic situation isn't great, perhaps there's less money, perhaps this is the moment to make concessions, to make compromise.
The BBC's Steve Rosenberg. Target stores and Ulta Beauty have announced the corporate equivalent of what you might call a conscious uncoupling. Their store within a store partnership goes back to 2021, but within 1 year, the 600 mini Ulta shops inside Target will go. Marketplace's Matt Levin has that.
When Target and Ulta announced they were shacking up together not so long after the pandemic hit, it was one of those couples that made sense on paper. Target was gaining a major brand in the beauty and wellness space that could bring higher-end products to its shelves, and Ulta was broadening its geographic footprint with a brick-and-mortar behemoth whose sales were soaring. But just like people, companies change.
We saw Target at the height of where they were at. They're not at their place anymore.
Olivia Johnson is a retail professor at the University of Houston.
When your partner starts to gain a little weight or their hairline starts to recede, you start to wonder, just sign up for this forever?
Inflation and political controversy have caused lackluster sales at Target the past couple years. Neither Target nor Ulta agreed to an interview request. Jenny Liu at the Yale School of Management says while the Ulta-Target marriage was built on the idea of convenience, Ulta customers often go to stores for haircuts or a consultation with a makeup pro.
So you might go into Ulta for more of an experience, whereas with Target, you might be going to stock up on some frequently purchased items.
And it's hard to put a salon chair in a Target. I'm Matt Levin for Marketplace.
Market numbers are mixed. Dow futures are up 0.6%. S&P futures.
Business professionals to meet modern
headaches on Science Friday from WNYC Studios.
When Target and Ulta announced they were shacking up in range,
when your partner starts
controversy have caused to Target
for more of a
Target. I'm Matt Levin for Marketplace.
Market numbers are mixed. Dow futures are up 0.6%. S&P futures are up by less than 0.1%. NASDAQ futures are down 0.2%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. YubiKey helps protect important digital applications and services. YubiKey, still undefeated, the original passkey. More at yubico.com. And by This Old House Radio Hour podcast, answering listeners' DIY and renovation questions and diving into home design trends, available in podcast apps.
The word nursing home suggests a place to live for an older person who can no longer care for themselves, but a surprising number of nursing home beds are going to people experiencing serious mental illness. It's not necessarily age, but conditions such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, or psychosis that account for as much as 90% of the spots in some nursing homes. This from an investigation by APM Research Lab, part of our parent organization, American Public Media. Elizabeth Gothrop is a data journalist there. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you, David.
How do so many people with mental illness find themselves in nursing homes?
Yeah, so it usually starts with a hospital stint. Hospitals are supposed to discharge patients somewhere safe, somewhere they can get the care that they need. And nursing homes are a relatively easy way for hospitals to check that box.
I see. This is not, say, an elderly patient with dementia where a properly equipped nursing home would be expected to be able to care for that patient. This might be, an able-bodied person suffering from perhaps schizophrenia? Are nursing homes equipped to deliver appropriate care in that case?
It seems like many are not. We analyzed tons of government inspection records, and we found some extreme cases in there. Sometimes people with mental illness were treated so poorly that they ended up in the hospital or even dead. And we found cases where people with mental illness hurt other people, which shouldn't happen if people are getting the right treatment and if there's enough staff. And it's not just that there are some isolated extreme cases. We actually analyzed every home in the country and found that nursing homes with higher rates of mental illness were more likely to be cited for abuse.
And your work shows that financial incentives play a role in people with mental health conditions going to nursing homes instead of other healthcare facilities, perhaps more appropriate for their care?
That's right. Part of this is basically that the federal government won't let Medicaid dollars pay for psychiatric institutions. So states have to pick up the bill there, but feds will pay for nursing homes. And we're talking about a lot of money. Medicaid pays roughly $6,000 a month for a person's nursing home stay.
What are ways being discussed to address this?
Studies have found that many people with mental illness don't need the kind of 24/7 care that nursing homes provide, and that they could actually instead live in a house or apartment. In fact, institutions like nursing homes can actually make those conditions worse. But the problem is the kinds of treatment programs that allow people to stay in their homes aren't available everywhere, and they often have long wait lists. So advocates for people with mental illness argue we should make it easier for Medicaid to pay for those programs. There's actually a provision in the Trump administration's big tax and spending law that could help states with that. But the law also has provisions that are likely to result in a lot of people on Medicaid losing their health insurance. So it's not clear how effective that'll be.
Right. That latter part, something we've been covering. Elizabeth Gothrop, APM Research Lab, part of the same American Public Media Group that owns Marketplace. Elizabeth, thank you for this.
Thanks so much for having me.
And the retail chain Costco has decided not to make available mifepristone at its pharmacies in the states where the abortion pill is legal. The company says it projects low demand, indicating many patients get the pill from their medical providers. Retailers and pharmacies are facing pressure campaigns by anti-abortion groups to stop filling these prescriptions. CVS and Walgreens say they'll still provide mifepristone where legal. The huge multi-brand grocery chain Kroger's says it's reviewing its stance. In Los Angeles, I'm David Brancaccio. This is the Marketplace Morning Report from APM, American Public Media.
Even on a Friday, you can check back in on the news this afternoon and get a wrap-up of the day's business and economic news at 4:30 on Marketplace. WBEZ is supported by Kellogg Executive Education, offering leadership programs that equip business professionals to meet modern challenges, providing insight in innovation, team building, and strategic communication skills. Learn more at Kellogg Executive Education.
I'm Sasha Ann Simons. On the next reset, no criminal charges against the officers who killed Dexter Reed. CPS scrambles to fill the budget gap. Plus, what's going on at the Illinois State Fair? That and more in our weekly news recap today at noon on 91.5 WBEZ.
Broadcasting from Chicago's Navy Pier, this is WBEZ HD Chicago, 91.5 FM, WBEQ Morris, 90.7 FM, and WBEK Kankakee, 91.1 FM.
Good morning. President Trump welcomes President Putin to Alaska today, a state that was once a part of the Russian Empire. At stake for their summit, the future of Ukraine. It's Morning Edition from NPR News. Grammy Award-winning artist Brett McKenzie has a new album called Freak Out City. I'm E. Martinez.
And I'm Michelle Martin. What the musician behind songs that have been sung by Kermit the Frog, Celine Dion, and Lizzo has to say about his latest work. Also, why a record number of lawmakers have no plans to run for re-election to Congress, and in the midst of wildfire season, the Trump administration wants to downsize the Forest Service. It is Friday, August 15th. Philanthropist Melinda Gates is 61 years old today. News is next.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Kristen Wright. Ukrainians are keeping close watch on today's summit between President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Alaska. But as NPR's Greg Myrie reports, Ukrainians are concerned about agreements that might emerge since their leader isn't at the summit to make his case.
Ukrainians have high interest in the summit and low expectations for what it might produce. One common response is that nothing substantive will come of the talks in Alaska. They think Russia's Putin is still firmly committed to the war. Olena Humenuk, age 46, lives in Kyiv. She says she thinks this summit is a waste of time. Negotiations are possible, she adds, but only if Ukraine is included. Some Ukrainians fear Trump and Putin might reach some sort of arrangement that would favor Russia, and then Ukraine will face pressure to accept it. An outcome, they say, that will only make their position more difficult. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Kyiv.
California Governor Gavin Newsom is moving ahead with plans to redraw congressional maps to try to win more seats for Democrats. This is to counter efforts by Republicans in Texas. Newsom made the announcement at a press conference in Los Angeles yesterday. Outside the building were Border Patrol agents. Newsom called it an intimidation tactic, but Border Patrol Sector Chief Gregory Bovino said these were just normal patrols.
This is a location that we have conducted these roving patrol duties for the past 2 months.
But L.A. Mayor Karen Bass says it is no coincidence.
There was no reason in the world for them to come here. Nothing to do with safety. In fact, this is the exact opposite of keeping our city safe. We do not need them here, and they had no business to come here and provoke this.
California will put the question to voters and hold a special election in November on redrawn districts. President Trump is turning up the heat on corporate America. As NPR's Maria Aspen reports, his recent actions are reshaping the future of business and the wider economy.
The word unprecedented gets used a lot to describe how President Trump is wielding power. But even by those standards, he's tightening the screws on big companies. Trump publicly excoriated 2 executives at Intel and Goldman Sachs, who aren't household names. But business experts have been even more rattled by a deal he announced with NVIDIA, which will pay the U.S. government a cut of its sales in exchange for being allowed to sell one of its chips in China. Ryan Bourne is an economist at the Cato Institute, a libertarian think tank.
Now, that isn't really free markets as Americans have understood it. It's almost political fee markets.
He's one of many warning that Trump's efforts to exert more control over companies threaten free market capitalism and the wider U.S. economy. Maria Aspen, NPR News.
This is NPR News from Washington.
70 degrees and cloudy skies at 6:04. I'm Mary Dixon with WBEZ News. Chicago school board members are pressing CPS leadership to revise the budget proposal rolled out this week. The majority of the board has signed a letter to the district CEO urging her to add a $175 million municipal pension payment and allow for a loan. The current proposal leaves out the loan and makes the pension payment dependent on extra state or city funding. The board members who signed the letter are all aligned with Mayor Brandon Johnson. Some members say the loan would only be used to avoid cuts, but include both items keeps their options open. Illinois Republican Party leaders say they're confident about their chances in 2026. But as WBEZ's Alex Degman reports, they've got an uphill climb.
State GOP Chair Kathy Salvi says she's excited about DuPage County Sheriff James Mendrick for governor and Springfield Attorney Don Tracy for U.S. Senate. And she's not concerned about fundraising against billionaire Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker.
His record is what will cause his demise. Listen, he has flattened this state. There's no hope. Even his own party, they don't like him.
Salvi says President Trump gained ground in Illinois last year, which is a sign the Republican message is working. But history says something different. Since 2016, every GOP statewide candidate has lost by double digits, except one. At the Illinois State Fair, Alex Degman, WBEZ News.
The Savannah Bananas will make their Chicago debut today. The former collegiate baseball team has sold out both nights at Rate Field. In fact, they've sold out every game this season. The Bananas first became popular by playing their own variation of the sport, which they call Banana Ball. Games include flaming bats, lip sync breaks, and appearances from the team's Dad Bod Cheer Squad. Team spokesman Sam Bauman likens it to a circus.
The hardest part about going to our games is finding a space to go to the restroom or to go to get food, because even between our innings, there is nonstop entertainment going on. And of course, during the inning, the hardest part is to know exactly where to look.
In Chicago, the team will play the Firefighters, who are also from Savannah. The Cubs lost to the Blue Jays 2-1. Weather today, partly sunny and a high around 90. It'll be cooler by the lake. Slight chance of rain overnight with a low of 74. And tomorrow, a high of 95 with heat index values up to 103 degrees. Traffic, there are delays on Metra's Milwaukee West line. There's a train stopped at Elgin coming into Union Station with mechanical problems.
WBEZ Traffic is supported by Unbound, helping children and families in need. More at unbound.org.
Coming up on Morning Edition, he's one half of Flight of the Conchords and also known as the Hot Hobbit for his role in the Lord of the Rings movies. Brett McKenzie is out with a new solo album. It's called Freak Out City. We'll hear more in 15 minutes on WBEZ.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Melville Charitable Trust, committed to ensuring all people have a safe, stable, and affordable home that allows them to thrive. Information about ways to prevent and solve homelessness is at melvilletrust.org.
It's Morning Edition from NPR News. I'm Michelle Martin in Washington, D.C.
And I'm Amy Martinez in Culver City, California. President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin meet today in Anchorage, Alaska for a high-stakes summit aimed at ending Russia's war with Ukraine. In just a few minutes, we'll speak with former U.S. Ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, to get his take on today's meeting. But first, let's take a look at how we got here.
Trump has said that ending the war is his priority.
And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future.
But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was not invited. That meeting, Trump says, could come next.
All I want to do is set the table for the next meeting, which should happen shortly. I'd like to see it happen very quickly, very shortly after this meeting.
NPR senior White House correspondent Tamara Keith is in Anchorage. Tam, what's expected for this big summit?
This will all take place at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson on the outskirts of Anchorage. The meeting is set to start at 11 a.m. local time out here. That's 3 p.m. on the East Coast. Trump and Putin will first meet one-on-one with just the two leaders and their translators. Trump has said he will be feeling out Putin and whether he's serious about ending the war, after numerous phone calls over the past 6 months that really haven't moved the needle. Next, they'll be joined by their advisors for a working lunch. And yesterday, the White House said that Trump and Putin will hold a joint press conference.
Really? Okay, so I remember their last joint press conference. That was, in Helsinki, Finland, 2018, I believe, right? I remember it was widely viewed as a bit of an embarrassment for the U.S. at the time.
Yeah, that summit took place as a special counsel was investigating Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. That investigation is something that Trump is still raging about. He calls it the Russia hoax. So during that joint press conference, Putin denied any election interference, and Trump appeared to take Putin's side over that of the U.S. intelligence community. Trump faced incredible backlash at home among Republicans and Democrats alike and eventually walked back some of what he said. But now, 7 years later, Trump says that summit was a success, and he is positioning himself as uniquely able to handle Putin.
If I weren't president,